This short web tutorial is going to show you how to manipulate some data in Google Sheets. So what we're going to do is we're going to go find some data. So I have here on Wikipedia the list of US presidents by birth order. So this is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy the entire data table, and I'm just going to go paste it into my Google Sheet. Now you'll notice it comes in pretty well, but we are going to have to do a few things to clean it up in order to make it work so we can manipulate it and find out what we really would like to know about the presidents. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze these two rows by grabbing this line and freezing the top two, just dragging it down. What that does is as I scroll now, the row 1 and 2 will always stay at the top. So now as I look through my data, I immediately notice a few things. Is one, Grover Cleveland has taken up 2 rows. And the reason why Grover Cleveland has taken up 2 rows is because he was actually president twice. He was elected twice and they were not consecutive terms. So you see both terms here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to unmerge these cells. That's why 25 and 26 show up as 1, is because they've been merged together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Format, and under Merge Cells, we're going to go to Unmerge. Now you'll see that we can click on row 25 and row 26 separately, but we do need to copy Grover Cleveland's data down to both. So we'll go ahead and put in Grover Cleveland twice now. Perfect. So now we have a list of presidents by birth order, but what if I was trying to turn this into a list of presidents by the order of their presidency? Now we see when they were in office, we have those years, but I need to do something to this, I need to do something to this cell in order to split that. So you'll see that in office shows up as one thing, but really I want to know is when they were in office and when they left office. So we'll go in office and we'll go out of office. I can take off caps lock here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this symbol right here. And sometimes it's just easier to copy that symbol, but we're going to split these rows. So I'm going to use a formula called split. It's going to be = split. And I'm going to split this cell, and I have to put this in quotation marks and then paste in the symbol that we're splitting it by. Now I can split these by commas, I can split these by a letter, but I'm going to go ahead and split these by that symbol right there, which I thought was a hyphen, but it didn't seem to work when I put in a hyphen. So I just copy and pasted, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll put in a comma and true and close the parentheses, and you'll see now March 4th, 1825 and 1829 come in as separate cells. Now I didn't actually put this up on the top, so I'll have to apply this formula all the way up, but I'm also going to apply it all the way down. So when you have a formula and you drag that little blue dot, it will apply that formula to all those rows, and in our case it will split all of those cells. Perfect. Now there's a few other things that we can do here. So now I have the list of presidents, and I can go ahead and I can filter this A to Z. This will put this in alphabetical order by date. What that has now done for me is you'll notice it's moved Donald Trump, who was the 41st president in birth order, to where he belongs as the current president of the United States behind Barack Obama. So what I'm going to do is I want a column in here. So I'm going to insert column to the right, and this is going to be order of presidency, and we'll do that on 2. Oops, put that onto 2. Well, whatever, we'll just separate that a little bit. So this is going to be their presidency. So what we'll have to do is we'll put in 1, 2. Now that we've established a pattern, I can highlight those 2, and I can again apply this all the way down. Now a lot of these numbers are going to match up, but what you'll notice is President Trump is actually president number 45, but in the birth order he was 41. So now I have a number to establish where they were in the line of presidency. But if I want to find out some other information, maybe I want to find out how long these terms actually were and who was in office for multiple terms and maybe who did not serve an entire term. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the subtraction. And I have 2 dates here, and you can do this with values, but you can also do it with dates. So I'm going to go to equals, and I'm going to subtract when they left office from when they started office. And what I should get is I get a number, 2,865 days. For Washington, and we can go down the list. Now notice Donald Trump does not have a value here. It says there's an heir, but that's because he is currently the president. So there is no out of office date yet. So he's going to be the anomaly on here, and we will not know with him for sure until his presidency is over. So I can do a couple things now. Is I can sort these columns, and now I have the presidents by the shortest term, and you'll see William Henry Harrison only served 31 days. In fact, it's a fantastic story that he got, I believe, pneumonia when he was giving his inauguration speech and died 31 days later. So now we can kind of identify the presidents who have served less than full terms. We can identify the presidents who've served one term, and you'll notice that in a traditional term, 365 days times 4 years is, I believe, 1,460. The reason why some of these are 61 is because it's March 4th to March 4th, right? So there's an additional day kind of built in there. But what we can do is we're going to use some conditional formatting to highlight certain presidencies in here. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go to data. So I'm going to go to format, and I'm going to go to conditional formatting. Conditional formatting allows me to make rules in my data and highlight certain things based on certain criteria. So this is going to be applied to this range. I want it to go to this whole range here. I want J to J. Now, and you'll see that whole column is highlighted. So format cells if cell is not empty, and what I'd like to do is I would like to format cells if the number is less than 1460, all right, and less than one full term. I'm going to have them highlighted in red. And so you'll see these are all the presidents that did not serve an entire term. And if we look at the list here, William Henry Harrison, Garfield was assassinated, Zachary Taylor died in office, so did Harding. Gerald Ford took over for Nixon. Millard Fillmore took over for Zachary Taylor. Kennedy was assassinated in office, and Chester Arthur took over for Garfield. Andrew Johnson took over for Abraham Lincoln, and John Tyler took over for William Henry Harrison. So these are all people up at the top of our list who did not serve full terms. Now, what we can also do is let's look at everybody who served 2 terms, 2 full terms or more. So what we'll do is Washington, we know, served 2 terms. Washington was kind of a unique president, being our first. And so we're just going to use that value. Anything over 2,865 would equal 2 terms. So we're going to add a new rule. And we're going to apply this rule to, again, range J to J. And what we're going to do, I just changed my rule, is we're going to, this is going to go to J to J, and if the number is greater than, I will do greater than or equal to Washington, which was 2865, we want those in green. So now we have a list of all the presidents who have served more than 2 terms. You'll notice that there's one real big anomaly here, and that's Franklin Roosevelt. And that's because Franklin Roosevelt was actually the only president to start his 3rd term because it was in the middle of World War II. Now, he never ended up finishing out that term as he died in office. But we can see which presidents have had some longevity. Now, Truman never served 2 full terms. He's very close in here, but Truman took over for Franklin Roosevelt after he died. So the first portion of this term was Franklin Roosevelt's. Theodore Roosevelt did the same thing when William McKinley was assassinated. So we have some really kind of interesting pieces. Nixon and Calvin Coolidge each have their own unique stories where they took over for, well, not Nixon. Nixon resigned, but Calvin Coolidge took over for Warren Harding, which is why he's more than a single term. But let's do this. Let's take a look at everybody who served exactly 1 term. So we're going to add one more row in here. And you'll see that single term comes in between 460 and 461, just based on the days of the inauguration. So we're going to add a new rule. Again, we're going to apply this to J. And what we're going to do is if the number is between, we'll do 1459 and 1462. Whoops. 1459 and 1462. We're going to have that go into yellow. So now we've got all the presidents who served one term, and everybody else is, again, kind of a unique situation. So everybody from Lincoln to McKinley to Johnson to Nixon to Calvin Coolidge, Theodore Roosevelt, and Harry Truman, they all either had died in office, had taken over for somebody. And so we've kind of used this data table that we got to do some pretty amazing things. Now, as we sort this data, if we wanted to go back to our original order here, which was by birth order, you'll see those conditional formatted rows start telling us a slightly different story, right? They tell us, okay, look, we had a two-term president, a one-term president, a few two-term presidents, one-term presidents, a short presidency, another one-term presidency, short presidencies, and it just kind of starts painting an interesting picture about the data. Now, you can do this with all sorts of things. The other thing that you can do then is you can start graphing some of the data. So if we wanted to know the states of birth of these presidents, we can highlight this column and we can use the little chart tool here. And you'll see now we've created a chart. Well, the majority of presidents, 8 in fact, have been from Virginia. But look at the distribution that all these different states have gotten from their presidencies. The one president from Hawaii was, that's right, Barack Obama. Anyway, a lot of things that you can do with the data tables, and I hope that you find some interesting ways to manipulate your data. Have a great day.